I'm sitting here tonight and I'm talking to Ian. He is a channel follower and he lives in America. He's originally from Kenya, but he spent basically his whole life in South Africa. And now he's a student in America. And I think between the two of us, we are going to touch some points that people should really take note of. Ian, thank you for your time and welcome to Skidmarks.
Thank you.
Please give us a little bit of your background.
Well, I I am a Kenyan by blood. I was born in the United States. Uh, my parents worked in America after coming from Kenya through a school scholarship, and my dad worked for General Motors in America, and my dad was headhunted by ESCOM to come and work in South Africa, and that's where my South African story begins. I came to South Africa in 2009. I went to school at Sharon Lee, and high school. I lived in the North Riding area in South Africa. I had an amazing time in South Africa. South Africa is a beautiful country, a beautiful place, and that's how my story in South Africa begins.
Okay. Now, you being a follower of the channel, you would know that I talk a lot about the threat that we all face from Triple X.
Yes.
You could give us a little bit of working in America. You
Mm-hmm.
have experience of how it's working here in South Africa, and
Yep.
you know that I am a serious, uh, actually, propagator of the value and importance of tribes.
Yes.
What is your opinion about that?
Well, it's actually something I wanted to I wanted to speak to you about. Um, we cannot, and I think this will relate to. I think said about it how family structures affect. And before we talk about tribes, how family structures affect politics, and it's something that I've been studying um, curiously. I started to realize that why do different countries have different political opinions? And I started to realize it's about the family structure. And I do agree with you that we need to return to the ideas of tribes, and we need to protect our tribal identities. But if if we look at the Europeans and here in America, um, there is a individualistic mindset, and that's the family structure of America and the family structure of Europe. In America, the moment you're 18, it's sink or swim. You know, they throw you out and they say, "Hey, survive." Whereas in the African context, it's more of a communal family structure. And I started to understand that there's a difference between the individualistic and the communal way of um, thinking. And I think this is why in South Africa, my experience in South Africa is why the Boer are frustrated with the local peoples of the country. It's not necessarily um, the idea that um, the locals are idiotic. Um, it's more of the family structure is is not individualistic, and therefore the locals believe what they are. It's not that they don't think for themselves, but they are more likely to think what their community thinks rather than think for themselves. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I understand what you are saying, but I'm also curious about your statements around the basic family structure because I personally believe
Mhm.
that the family structure is a main target for Triple X because they
Yep.
know if they can destroy that, they've destroyed the tribe and the nation, basically.
Yes.
And the family structure that is where a person gets his cultural roots. That,
Yes.
and I've said it many times. A person that is rooted in his culture is
Yes.
like a tree standing in the veld. It will withstand fires, it will withstand storms, it will withstand drought, but it will grow.
Yes.
The
That's
moment that you lose that cultural roots, you become a pot plant on
and
somebody's patio.
I think that's what
And
X is fighting against culture. That's what they are targeting. Because if you
yes,
can destroy the cultural identity, then there is nothing for the person to live for or fight for. There's nothing.
yes. And and the moment that you turn the water and the fertilizer off on that pot plant,
Yes.
gone.
Yeah.
And they know it so well. And what really frustrates me is that I'm an old guy. I mean, I've been around for 72 years. I've seen things. If I talk about what happened at Sharpeville,
Yes.
I don't talk about history that I read somewhere in a book or in a newspaper. I was
Yes.
alive at that stage. When you
Yes.
talk about the Soweto uh, riots,
Yes.
I was alive. I experienced it. If I
Yes.
talk about the medical facilities at Baragwanath Hospital, I talk about first-hand experience. My friends of mine were doctors there. I
Yes.
know how it worked. If I talk about the railways, I know friends of mine was there. I rode those trains. When I talk about Escor, I understand what I'm talking about because I worked as a student. I worked holidays at Escor, being a crane driver to
Yes.
pay for studies. I
Yes.
actually experienced these things.
Mhm.
And I have seen, and you must understand, I've got a great respect for the Zulus, specifically because I grew up in Zululand.
Yes.
And what I always admired about the Zulus
Yes.
was the way the community was looking after the individuals in the community.
Yes.
And a
I
child grow up in
do.
a family, but the
Yes.
whole community educates that child.
Yes.
And with us, the Buddha, in my
Mhm.
young days, it was the same. If we, as a bunch of kids, if we do some shit, the first parent that comes onto the scene bliksums all of the kids.
Yes.
Doesn't matter whose kid it is, all of
Yes.
them. And on the other hand, if you are over lunchtime, friends, they feed all the kids that are there.
Yeah.
So the community was the community were growing the children,
Yes.
and the children had those values installed in them.
Yes.
Today, those things have evaporated,
That's
and
true.
I have made a few skid marks in which I ranted about the absolute evil fucking system with this child grant that created the breeding program. And all of a sudden, you've got these kids that grows up without fathers. Many
Yep.
of them don't know who his father is. They
That's
grow
true.
up without culture. Nothing. So what
I
are
think
they? They don't even know themselves what they are.
that's true.
Do you see? Do you see the, let's call it the destruction of the base family in America?
Yep. Yep. I. It's everywhere in America. I think the only place in America where you will not see it is the South, and that's at the exclusion of Florida. Florida is very, it's conservative, but it's there's a
With it.
destruction. Yes, and it's everywhere. Even right now, as I speak to you, in my apartment, the destruction of family structure is happening every single day. I'm telling you right now.
And
Every single day. Every
and
single day.
Ian, tell me, what is the what is the situation like in Kenya, or don't you really know?
Um, my experience in Kenya is very limited. What I have seen in Kenya, I've also seen what I see online is the destruction of the family in Kenya. I see it. But my experience there with my family has a very strong cultural and tribal ties. So for me, I haven't experienced it in my life, but what I do see online and what my family does say about Kenya is also in Kenya the destruction of the family there. So that's my
All
knowledge
right.
of.
Uh, you know, yeah, a lot of my tribe members, they they are they are not so with me for the fact that I am eager to talk across the uh, let's call it the racial divide.
And
I
that's
don't
okay.
see a divide. I don't see a divide.
Yes.
I see a difference, but I don't see a divide, if you can understand what I'm trying to say.
Yes. And I don't necessarily have a problem with that, actually, because I think it's everywhere, especially here in America. There are not a lot of people who are willing to cross that boundary.
The base reality is we are not all the same. We are not all the same. That's how we've
That's
been
true.
created. We have been created different.
That's true.
The big problem
That's
that
true.
I feel that is dictating the friction and the shit is the lack of respect. That is for me the key.
Yes. And you can finish off. It's okay.
No, no, no. Go.
Um, I I do sympathize with the Bura, and I think the Bura have witnessed their country, South Africa, collapse. Not, I won't use the word collapse. I think that, especially online, it's overused. I think dismantled, destroyed, in 30 years. Something, what the Bura were once proud of, their structural buildings, their statues, their culture, it's all being destroyed. And I think that's why the Bura have a animosity towards the natives, in particular, because it, if you can imagine, it's 300 years, 400 years of development gone. And that's why I sympathize with them. And I remember, I was speaking with a friend of mine, and he was asking me, why is it that, you know black people tend to destroy everything that they touch? And I couldn't answer him, because there are people like me who are educated, and who are educated and how they see things differently. But I always wonder, why are we this way? Why are my fellow black brothers this way? What is the reason? And it's something that I'm studying now. So I don't have a clear idea of what that is, but I'm studying it right now. I'm very even Vusi Kwayo was talking about it. He was talking about why are the everywhere you look in the world, the story of black people is destruction, and why. And it's also something I'm studying. It's very fascinating.
You know, I think what the blacks here in South Africa don't understand about the aggression in the Boere
Yes.
is they do not understand that it was people like me, my generation,
Mm-hmm.
we worked fucking hard to build what is there that they are now destroying.
Yes.
We paid for it. We were taxed. Our taxes were used to build these schools, to build this infrastructure, all of it.
Yes.
And we see our handiwork just being destroyed. And
And I
and the
don't.
sad part, Ian, the sad part is, the reality is, if you take the broader black community,
Yes.
they do not have the skills,
Mm-hmm.
or they don't have the experience to rebuild what they have destroyed.
That's true. And I agree
So,
with. I saw a video of you. You said what Nelson Mandela should have done was said, "Hey, we are a new country now. You need to now, um, I won't say transfer of skills, but we need to now include, instead of erasing what the Bura have done, you need to include them into the Bura have done and teach them." And that's what Nelson Mandela should have done. He didn't do it, and
yeah.
South Africa is where it is today.
But in my recent contacts now with those guys from Zimbabwe, and when they started
Yeah,
telling me about their problems, and in the documentation that they sent to me, it is becoming clear that Mandela is not the guy that the blacks think he was.
he
He's a
wasn't.
he's a he was a triple X agent from the word go, and
I mean,
a thing
great
that
America. When I first came to America, the first billboard, advertising billboard that I saw here in America was Nelson Mandela. That's I'm telling you.
you know uh, the thing that sometimes makes me wonder is the fact that these young blacks that are now the militant ones,
Yeah.
they're talking about an era
Hmm.
that they did not experience.
And I think it ties to communal communal identity. If you actually think about it, um, the idea of I am going to think the way my community thinks. So it's not that they believe in what they say, but they believe in what the community says. Their father, their mother, their grandmother, their uncles, and what their stories become. The stories of their grandmother becomes their stories, and I think that's why I have come to realize that I think if, I'm not against communal societies, but I think um, the Bantus in particular should become more individualistic in terms of thinking, because this idea of I think what my uncle thinks is the is what's perpetuating the destruction of South Africa and Africa as a whole, because I have come to realize and I think it's why even if you look at the political structures, the communal identity ties with the socialist way of thinking. And that's why Africans double down on communism, even though it doesn't work for them, they double down. Not because not because they believe in communism, but because their way of life is in us in because it's communal, and the communist idea of we instead of I is what's perpetuating the destruction of the natives. I'd like, what's your opinion on that?
I hear what you say, and I agree to a large extent. I agree. I want to ask you an interesting question, but you must listen carefully to what I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
A person with your background,
Hmm.
coming out of a functioning, proper family,
Yes.
are you uh, prone to follow a guy like Julius Malema?
No. No.
Okay. Okay.
I
That
have
is
listened
what
to
I have suspected all
I
along.
have I have listened to Julius Malema, and I cannot for the life of me support him. I can't. I'm not.
I thought so. But I had to ask you that question because I'm sure my viewers would like to know, because you must understand, I've got a crazy mission.
Yes.
First of all, I'm most prominent in my programs is I'm trying to give the people the truth.
Yes.
So, and if you listen to my stuff, I very rarely come up with solutions. I just
Yes.
give you the facts, and then you must think about those things, and you must get the solution, not me.
Yes.
I give you the
Yes.
facts, but you can
Yes.
trust my facts. That
It's
is
true.
very important to me. Then
I
the
have watched
next
you. I have
and
watched you
another,
say. Sorry.
another go.
I have watched you sit even before you had 1,000 subscribers. I watched you. I was watching you. I remember one time you came on my feed, and I was like, "Who is this guy?" And I just tapped and I subscribed immediately. And I think I did a video about. I think I did a video with not with you, but I included one of your videos on my video. But it was. I mean, I listened to you the first time, and you really challenged me. You really challenged me. 2 years ago, I think a year ago, 2 years ago, I didn't. I was in the. I didn't understand what triple X was until I met you. I didn't understand. Oh, until I met you.
Okay, because then I've got this other sector of my mission
Yes,
is to make people understand that it is vital that we respect one another
that's
and
true.
that we respect one another's culture.
That's true.
And me and you can be good friends and we can bride together. But that
Yes,
doesn't mean I want to get into bed with your sister.
that's
Fuck.
true. That's true.
Where does that shit come from? And
It's
that
it's
is
a
the
triple X.
thing that I think that all of us that are in a position to actually understand that principle of respect,
Yes,
we need to promote that because, yes, I'm a white man, you're a black guy,
yes,
but that is how we were made.
that's true.
But inside of you, I've said it and I've told the story. Just recently in one of my Skidmarks, I mentioned it. If me and you sit here in the bush in Africa around a fire and somebody is standing somewhere in the bush looking,
Mhm.
all he actually sees is he sees two men.
Yes,
And for us sitting around the fire, we're totally unaware of the fact that I'm white and you black.
yes, that's
We're,
true.
we're sharing the fire.
Yes,
And but if there is suddenly a threat, me and you will fight that threat immediately because it threatens us both.
that's true.
Doesn't give a shit whether I'm white or you black. That fucking lion is going to eat us both if we
Yes.
don't act. And that is something that, but I must tell you, Ian,
Mm-hmm.
I get a lot of messages from people that follow the channel and so forth.
Yes.
And as the time went by, I am seeing that a lot of the people are actually beginning to understand what I'm trying to say.
Yes. And that's a good thing.
And there's not 1 minute that I'm going to say you and me are the same because we are not the same.
True.
But you have skills, you have talents that I don't have.
Yes.
I have skills and I have talents that you don't have.
Yes.
And how do we grow?
If we
By
combine,
listening, by listening, by observing, by checking. This
yes.
fucking animosity is something that is injected into our societies for an evil goal. It's the
Yes.
old, to be simplistic, divide and rule. That's what they're doing to us. And we are so fucking stupid. We play the ball with them.
Yes.
Ian,
And
this was a
yes.
fantastic talk, and I'm sure me and you are going to have more discussions. Uh, the thing is this: you are seeing America firsthand,
Yes.
and you are basically, in my view, you are on grassroots. So
Yes.
you what you see is not the bullshit that they show us on the TVs.
And one
Last
and they are Americans, real Americans fighting. They are fighting, and I see it in the streets. There are people here who are seeing this nonsense, and they're trying to fight. They are trying to fight back, but how can you fight back when everyone else, when majority of the people in the country are corrupted? So it's a difficult fight for them.
it's a big thing for me. I'm going to do. I'm busy now working on
Yes,
a code of conduct for
yes,
tribes, a
yes,
tribal code of conduct. And when I publish that, I would seriously like your comment on it,
yes.
because what we have tried with that thing
Hmm.
is to draw up a document. I think it's 10
Hmm.
or 11 points
Yes.
that every tribe in the
Hmm.
world, doesn't matter about ethnicity.
Yes.
Every decent person will be
Yes.
able to associate with it. And if we can get that fire going, we
Yes.
will destroy Triple X in no time flat.
Yes.
Why is
Yes.
Triple X so against any talk about tribes? Because they know it is the
They're afraid.
tribes that can destroy them.
Yeah, they're afraid. And I think what tribes do is the unity of a tribe is undefeated. You can destroy a person individually, but you cannot destroy a group of people. And I think that's what
No,
they are more. That's afraid of.
and there's a base difference, and I mentioned
Yes.
it in the Skidmark that I've just now published about the EU.
Yes.
The base difference is there's a big difference between a soldier and a
Hmm.
warrior,
Yes.
a major difference.
Yes.
Soldiers take commands
Yes.
and they execute commands. A warrior
Yes.
fight for the
Yeah.
cause. And a warrior never surrenders because he knows.
Um.
Sorry.
It's a.
A warrior
Yeah.
knows if he surrenders, he is
Yes.
gone and his
Yes.
tribe is gone.
Yes.
And that is what Triple X fears most.
True. I had a conversation. Um. And I think I saw it here in America also. There is a misconception when it comes to American soldiers. A lot of people think that it's the liberals or the normal Americans you see. Majority of the American soldiers are from the South. They're from the
Yes.
South. And I remember one time, especially a few days ago during Independence Day, they were doing a parade here in Colorado, and they were marching through the street. And one same story, I saw the soldiers weren't saluting, but it took one child to salute. Everyone started saluting, and I could see to them. I think, especially here in America, the soldiers feel underappreciated. Um, can you hear me?
Yes, I listen.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's my connection. The soldiers in America feel underappreciated. They feel as if they're fighting for whatever they're standing for is a lost cause. I mean, the amount of homeless veterans in this country is insane, and they don't feel appreciated. They don't feel. And I remember one time I went to work. I saw a cardboard saying, "Please help a veteran. Please help a veteran. I am ashamed of you if you because you cannot even help." Um, a veteran. It's said, I'm sure, and people are just, and the worst thing is, you see a veteran, people just pass them by like they're nothing, and
Yeah.
and it's and um, I don't think, and it's because people, when they think about the American military, they think, oh, everyone joins. No, it's actually the real men who, the Southern boys, the South. Those are the real men in this country. They are the ones fighting. They are the ones going to the Navy SEALs. They are the ones joining the Army, the Marines. They're the ones doing everything. The normal Americans who do join, they're just there for like. For benefits. But the real soldiers, the front lines are from the South. And to see that is heartbreaking. And the amount of veterans, the amount of fighters in this country who are in the streets, it's saddening. It's saddening. And I feel their pain. I feel their pain. And what's even crazier, and is majority of the veterans who I have seen on the streets, I'm not even black. They're white, which is even crazier. I've never seen one black veteran on the streets in this country. Not one. But I have seen many white veterans on the street. That is shocking. That is, for me, and those white veterans on the street are Southern boys. They're not even your typical liberal Americans. They're from the South. They're from Texas, Tennessee, Alabama. They're from there, and they're not appreciated. And even when you look in, and some of them don't even ask for money. They just want a job. Just a job. They say, hey, I'm willing to do anything for $10 an hour. Anything for $10 an hour. No one will give it to them. No one will give
You
it to
know,
them.
what you have said now
Yes.
is one of the things I have touched a few times in some of my Skidmarks,
Yep.
is that those fucking cretins sitting in the shithouse in Washington,
Yep.
they can blow billions of dollars in the Ukraine,
Yep.
but their own people is on the streets.
Can you give me a second? Is that okay?
Yes,
I
I
just need to charge my phone. Sorry. Can you still see me?
yes. What I'm
Right. Thank
saying
you.
is that those cretins sitting in the shithouse there in Washington,
Yeah.
they blow billions of dollars in the Ukraine,
Yeah.
but inside their own country, their veterans are sleeping under bridges.
Yeah. I've seen it.
And
I've seen it.
and I and
I've seen it.
I've listened to a guy talking about it, and then he mentioned that how many $1 million it will take all the veterans off the street.
Yeah.
And if you compare it to what is pissed out in the Ukraine, it's a drop in the bucket.
I remember.
And I think to
I remember.
myself,
I remember when
how
Hawaii was
can that
burning.
politicians live with themselves? What they
Yes.
don't understand is the day that those veterans and
Mm-hmm.
their families say, we've had enough.
Mm-hmm.
There is not a force in America that will be able to stop them.
They're talking about a revolution here in this country right now. I'm telling you. Some are talking about seceding. Some are talking about taking the country back. And I hear this language, and I'm like, I don't even know if I'm gonna live here for that too long, because if there's a revolution coming, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of scary, you know.
What I want to say to you is that I listened one night to a guy on the Duran, and
Mm-hmm.
he said that in 2019, February 2019, they ran a poll in America, and the question was simple. Uh, do you think there can be a civil war in America?
Yeah.
Yes or no? And he said that poll in 2019,
Mm-hmm.
14% of the people said yes.
Yeah.
He said they ran exactly the same poll in February 2023.
Mm-hmm.
64% said yes.
Yeah. It's
So I have
it's
mentioned to some guys that I'm talking to, and I said to them, it is my gut feeling that America is so close to a civil war.
yeah.
And they're saying, wata, 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 wata. And I think, okay. The problem with most of these commentators
Mm-hmm.
is they don't understand the psyche of people.
That's
They
true.
don't take that into consideration
That's true.
because because what these liberals managed to do in Washington is to grab total control over the power and total control
Mm-hmm.
over the lives of all the people.
Yes.
They it's illegal what they're doing, but the
Yes.
people has been lulled or dumbed down or panel beaten into accepting the shit.
Yes.
Now, from my experience as an old guy, you can usually push a decent oak
Mm-hmm.
quite a lot before he turns violent. But the
Yes.
moment he turns violent, fuck,
It's game
nothing can
over.
stop him. You can't
Yes.
stop him. And
Yes.
that is what I think. This was fantastic. And I want to say again, thank you for contacting me. And thank you
Yes.
for asking me to give you a contact details and so forth.
Yes.
And I'm sure me and you are going to have talks in the future. And what I want
Uh,
to say to you is,
mhm.
if you see incidents or things there in America
Yes.
that you can associate with skid marks and the
I
skid
have
marks,
one right now. I have one.
yeah,
Just the last one. Every day I go to work, I see heroin addicts. I see cocaine addicts. I see people on the streets vomiting randomly. I'm not making this shit up. Randomly, just vomiting, drugs, doing everything, and it's everywhere.
all right.
So
Me and you will have we will have a session where we talk about those ailments in
yes,
society and
yes,
how many of those things are happening here in our country. And this was a great conversation, Ian.
yes,
Your day is in front of you. My night is in front of you. Have
yes.
a great day. And thank you
Have a
very
great
much
night.
for coming onto the channel. Something you want to say to the viewers?
Um, Thank you for listening to me and listening to Colleen, and have a great day and a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.